Good evening, Southworth family. I apologize you can't see me. My name is TJ Ledford, but I'm very excited to introduce the two people tonight. First, I would like to introduce Sarah Walsh, if you do not know her. Sarah is the one who put this together. So without further ado, Sarah, please.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our virtual tasting. We are very excited that you're here, and we're so excited that we have Doug Shafer here joining us from Napa, talking about his iconic winery and telling us a little about the history of Shafer. Doug, do you want to say hi?
Hi, Sarah. Hi, everybody. Southworth family, live from Napa Valley. It's Thursday evening live. New show.
Yeah, I feel like we should go into straight Saturday Night Live skits here. I think the team is joining in. Everyone's here. Jeremy's kind of in the background here with us too, and he can see whoever is here and asking questions. If you're tuned in, your mics are muted now, and we're going to give Doug the floor in just a couple minutes to kind of go over some things about the winery and the history, and talk to you guys about Shafer in general. And then when he finishes up his presentation, we're going to do a little bit of Q&A, so we'll unmute you guys there. But there is a chat box, so if you guys have questions you want to throw out at any point, feel free to put those into the chat, and we'll try to get everybody's questions answered. And we're so excited that you're here. We really hope you guys have some of the wines in front of you and open your tasting along with us. Hopefully the first of many really great virtual tastings with some amazing icons like Doug and the Shafer wines. So Doug, I'm going to give you the floor to kind of go over some of the cool insights you have into the Shafer history and the winery.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Once again, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming out here tonight, taking the time. I really wish I was there, because when I've got a live audience, I can tell my off-color jokes if I can read the audience right, but since I can't, I won't, because that just doesn't work right. Also, you know, if I get really boring, you can just jump in and say, hey, move along, you're getting boring, you're getting stale, or you can just leave the thing or just leave the room. It's okay, I can't see you, so I don't care. I don't know, no biggie. Meanwhile, I'm really happy because it's only 4 o'clock here in California, but because I get to do these things, I get to start drinking even before 5 o'clock, even though 3 o'clock is the new 5 o'clock out here, but tonight it's 4 o'clock. So cheers. I'm drinking some 17 Red Shoulder Ranch Chardonnay. We'll talk more about that later. I think a lot of you guys have 4 wines. You've got Chardonnay, 1.5 Cabernet, Relentless, and a Hillside Select. If you've got those wines there and they're open and you're tasting them or drinking them, feel free to go for it. I am not one of those guys that say, you know, don't drink that wine until I'm ready to talk about it. So just go for it, which I am. Cheers. So normally you mention PowerPoint and everybody goes, ooh, because PowerPoint with live people, everybody's all sick and bored of that. But these days with our virtual thing, that's all we got to work with. So here we go, if I can get in. So this is our place. Can you guys see that? Oh, yeah. Hey, Andy, my screen went weird. What am I doing? Stop show.
I see the PowerPoint, Doug.
You got the slides. I still see me, so I'm assuming everybody can see it.
Yeah, we see a PowerPoint.
Okay, cool. But I can't do that.
I see a beautiful vista of your winery.
Can I get rid of my picture? How do I do that? Click on what? There I go. Okay, good. Thanks, guys. Sorry, I'm a winemaker, not a tech guy, but I'm working on that. So here's our spot. It's right in the heart of Stag's Leap District in Napa Valley. This picture's taken after harvest. Leaves are starting to change color. It's the winery. Quick location, Napa Valley, about 30 or 40 miles as the crow flies north of San Francisco, northeast a bit. The San Francisco Bay is cold water. There's something called the Alaska Current that comes down into the bay. Those of you who've been to San Francisco in the summertime know how cold it can be in San Francisco, but then warm just as soon as you get outside the Bay Area up to the North Napa Valley. Obviously, Sonoma's over here near 101 and then the Pacific Ocean. Napa Valley about 30 miles long, 2 or 3 miles wide, and we're in what's called the Stag's Leap District, which is right there. It's about 2 miles long, a mile wide, about 8-9 miles north of Napa, right across the valley from Yountville. A lot of you, if you've been out here, that's some great restaurants, Thomas Keller's place, French Laundry, Bouchon, other places in Yountville. And this is a shot of our place. The winery's right here in the foreground, and these are our hillside vineyards looking south right down the Stag's Leap District. It's kind of, the area is actually, it's like a small valley within the larger Napa Valley. If you go to the right here, past these hills, over to the right, another 2 miles is the other side of Napa Valley. But this is Stag's Leap, which is on the eastern side of the valley, kind of in the lower third of Napa Valley. Off in the distance, up in the upper right-hand corner, if it was a clear day, you'd see the skyline of San Francisco. And by the way, as most of us know, with the last few weeks with less pollution, air pollution, we can see that skyline these days really clearly. It's really been amazing. So that's cool. So this is our spot. Right next door to us is Stag's Leap Wineries Vineyards, and then it goes down to Nate Fay and Warren Winarski, Stag's Leap Wine Cellars, Clos de Val, Chimney Rock, right down the chute there. So great place to grow grapes, Cabernet. History of Shafer. Grapes were grown on our spot by a guy named Battiste Scansi. This is 1922. This is our spot right now. Our winery is right back where his barn and house was, so it's the same deal. This ridge line, 1922, is still the same. I've hiked up there for many years, and it's still the same deal. Pretty cool. Makes me think about when I'm long gone. There's a picture of me, and some guy says that's Doug Shafer and Battiste Scansi, and you know, oh well, we won't go there. I'm rambling again. Anyway, so history of Shafer. I grew up in Chicago. This is my dad, John Shafer. He was a book publisher for 22 years. Got a crazy idea back when he was about 48. Moved us out to the Napa Valley from Chicago. He was 48. I was 17. He was not even he wasn't a wine drinker. He was bourbon and beer, but he kept reading about the pending wine boom in Napa Valley. So he came out here and bought a vineyard as an investment, ended up moving us out here in 73. I was a junior in high school, and he worked on replanting these vineyards in the 70s. His first wine was a 78 Cabernet, which was released in 1981. It was the granddaddy to Hillside Select, and you're gonna not like this. The retail price of this 78 Cab was $11 a bottle, the granddaddy to Hillside.
Wow.
Here's a shot of Dad. This is in the mid-70s, picking grapes. That's Dad. That's Alfonso Zamora, who was with us for a long time, our vineyard manager, one of his kids. My little brother's right there. And this tractor is a TD9 tractor, which we'll talk about later because we've got a wine called TD9. But he just loved growing grapes. And I joined him. I went to UC Davis. I did the whole gig with enology and viticulture. Came out, taught junior high school in Tucson for a couple years, then came back to the wine business for 2 or 3 years at a few other wineries. I joined him in 1983. And you know, as a kid, I never knew I was going to end up working with my dad. We had 35, 36 years together building Shafer Vineyards, which was really cool. We lost him a year ago. He was 94. We miss him, but he had a great run and built a beautiful winery. That's just another shot in the cellar. Look, I've got hair and it's not gray.
You look exactly the same.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. And Sarah, you get a free bottle of wine for all those compliments. Anyway, in 1984, I hired a kid right out of UC Davis, Elias Fernandez. Great guy. He is still with us. He took over winemaking in 1994, 95, and he's been our winemaker for 35, 36 years. He and I have had that many vintages together, which has been fantastic. Are we good? Okay. And
I can hear you and I can see your PowerPoint, but I can't see you.
Can't see me. How about, can you see me now?
Yeah.
Did I lose my camera? Okay, I'm back on.
Okay.
Here's the winery today. This is looking from one of our hillside vineyards, looking west to the setting sun. We get a great late afternoon light to help ripen. This is all hillside Cabernet around the winery, these hills right here. And if you come to Shafer and buy a bottle of wine, there's a chance you could fall in love. So there you go. Overview of the winery, again, with some of our vineyards and water. We've got our wastewater pond here in the lower foreground. That's where we recycle all the water we use in the cellar. We pump it up here and treat it and use it to irrigate. This pond comes from runoff. There's a creek over here on the left side, just below the winery, that runs in the wintertime, and we tap into that. The water, we get a ton of water off these hills, and that fills this pond right here for irrigating our home ranch. And we're 100% solar powered. This is, we've been that way since 2004. Being here in California, solar is the way to go for sure. Another shot of the hillside vineyards with the Stag's Leap Palisades in the background. Again, that's on the eastern side of the Napa Valley. Quickie, just overview. Remember, if this is getting boring, just have a glass, just have a sip of wine, or you can have a gulp, which is what I'm doing right now.
No, it's not boring at all, Doug. Not yet. I'll let you.
Here we are. Here are our vineyards. We have about 220 acres of vineyards. In lower part of the screen, Red Shoulder Ranch, Carneros, where the Chardonnay comes from. And then up north of Napa, along the Silverado Trail, the majority of our vineyards are just in the Stag's Leap district and just south of it. School Bus, borderline, La Mesa, Ridgeback, Cabernet, Syrah, Petit Syrah, Merlot, some Malbec too. Then the home vineyards up here in the kind of box canyon of Stag's Leap. That's the slides I showed you earlier.
Doug, how much of that was planted when you started in the 80s?
Oh, in the 80s, all we had when we moved here was the home ranch. And then we started adding on School Bus. We purchased in the early 80s and developed Ridgeback and La Mesa kind of in the 90s, borderline 2000s. Red Shoulder Ranch was in like around 1988, as I remember.
So you had all those vineyards for a while, but not all from the beginning.
No, from the beginning, all we had was the home ranch, which was originally 30 acres was planted when we moved out here, and then Dad started developing hillside vineyards, and it's up to 50 acres now. That's all we can get out of the hills here. Good question, Sarah. Thank you. Here's a beauty shot. This is looking on the south end of the Stag's Leap district, looking north up to where the winery is, right here in the center of the screen, and surrounded by our hillside vineyards. So basically what we're in, it's kind of like a box canyon. So all these hillside vineyards have got wonderful exposures to the southeast, south, southwest, and actually west. This is the home of Hillside Select, right up here in this box canyon. It's a pretty cool spot.
Is everything there that's plantable planted?
Yes, yeah, I did that a few years ago. Because there's some pretty strict zoning regs in Napa Valley with where you can plant, how steep. So I planted everything I could. It ends up to be about 55 acres, which again, just an overview looking down on these different hillsides surrounding the winery. So that's the spot.
So where we see the trees, those are just areas where it's too steep?
Yeah, it's too steep, not enough soil, or it's a lot of times it's near a creek or a runoff. This is that creek. Are you guys able to see my cursor?
Mm-hmm.
I think. Yeah, so here on the left, all these trees, that's a creek coming down from the hills, which is dry for probably 8 months of the year, but during the winter when it rains, that's when we get all the rain. This creek runs like crazy, and it actually goes right underneath the winery out here, which I showed you earlier, and that's where we have a pipe that actually fills this pond.
Cool.
So it's So yeah, there's creeks and tributaries are protected from having too much development close by.
Sure.
We harvest at night. We've been doing that for a long time now. It's probably 10 or 15 years. The pickers love it. We love it. We get cold fruit. There's some guys out there. Everything with all the lights and headlamps, it's lit up like daytime. It's amazing. Crush pad. Upper right, grapes are getting dumped into this hopper. This thing moves like a locomotive, just jiggles the grapes down to this white conveyor belt where guys are sorting out. They're getting out leaves, dirt, rocks, hopefully no rocks, anything that shouldn't be going into the destemmers. And the grapes, the clusters fall into these two blue machines in the background here. These are destemmers. So the grapes are separated from the grape stems. Stems get dumped into the ground where there's a conveyor belt that takes them off to a truck. And the berries drop onto another table, which is in this lower right hand by these two guys down here. That's a sorting table, and that's where the berries are coming out. I'll show you that in the next slide. So there's another shot of it. This is the grape berries after they've been destemmed, and they're coming down here in this really cool machine that looks like R2-D2. It's an optical sorter, and this thing optically sorts out bad stuff from the good stuff. So the bad stuff are pieces of stems, shot berries, raisins, grapes that are pink and aren't truly red. You can program all that into this thing, and it does it by optically taking instant photographs of everything that comes across the plane inside here. So the bad stuff gets sorted out right here into this white bin that's where I'm standing. And then the good stuff goes into this incline conveyor right up here, falls into a little, it's actually a crusher, which crushes the grapes because you need to get the grapes crushed. In the old days, people did it with their feet. And then through this hose right in the lower right, that's a must line, and must is juice, skins, and seeds, and that's called must, and that gets pumped into a tank and that's fermented because the color for red grapes comes from the skins. So you got to free the juice, and so that you ferment it with the skins to get the color and flavor and tannin.
Doug, in a normal year, how much are you sorting out?
Good question. So let's see, if we'd probably fill that bin in about every about 10 or 15 tons of grapes. We crush about 600 tons total, including white. But here's what you get. And a lot of times there's some good berries in there and some good juice. And whenever my accountant goes out in the crush pad and sees all their good berries there, he gets really kind of pissed off. But that's okay because we're about quality here. So here's what we get. So that's the good stuff. That's what goes into the tanks, okay? And here's what is getting sorted out. That's the bad stuff. So you've got stems, leaves, you got these little green shot berries. See that? I don't know if you see the cursor. See that shot? That's a shot berry. And that's just going to give you tartness, bitterness, and it's not going to ruin the wine, but it's going to take away from the flavor. So in the old days, basically all this stuff went into the tank before we got this optical sorter. And we still make really good wines, no stretch. But now with the sorter, all the stuff's gone. So the wines are just cleaner, clear, more focused flavors right away. The first year we got it, this baby costs a lot of money. Elias, damn it, he's such a good winemaker. Whenever he wants something, he gets it. So he walked into this optical sorter and said, we need to do this. And then he told me the price tag, and I said, no frickin' way. And he said, I gotta have this. So whatever he wants, he gets. And we thought we'd do some experiments. The first year we had it, this back in 2011, and we had a whole thing set up with the same barrels and doing the same lots of wine. And within the first couple of days of just tasting the juice out of the tank before we started fermenting even, it was like, we don't need to do the experiment. This stuff is so good, we got to go for it. So just made it cleaner wines, more focused aromas right away. After fermenting, wine ages in barrels. We've got a great barrel room. We've got a cave, and then we bottle it and release it. Here's the team. That wasn't taken too long ago, 4 or 5 years, a little bit of gray hair. he still looks like he's looked like he's 16 for like 45 years. The kid never ages. Then we've got Cody, the winery dog, and
Oh,
and also in the springtime we bring in the last 4 or 5 years we've got new players. We've got the sheep. So we bring the sheep in to help eat our cover crops, so we don't have to run tractors through as much as we used to. Plus, they do a real nice job fertilizing. The sheep are great. My Cracker Jack production team put together 6 hours of uninterrupted sheep grazing in our hillside vineyards, and we put it on YouTube. And it's gotten over, what's it got, like 230,000 hits of sheep grazing for 6 hours, because people during this pandemic, they got their apartment in New York, so sometimes they have burning logs on the screen. Now we've got sheep grazing, so you can have sheep grazing all day and keeping you company.
that's a lot of sheep.
That's a lot of sheep. That's fun. And then we've got our wines. We're tasting a few of them today. We'll talk about those in a sec. So that's it.
Doug, can we go back to the sheep just for a second? How
Sure.
long do they stay in the vineyard for?
They come in for about 3 weeks, and it's the timing's tough because you got to get them. You want to get them in there before the rain, after the rain's kind of stops. So, because if it rains after they're in, then the weeds will start growing again, the cover crop. But you got to get them in there before the vines start growing, because these are these little baby, where's my cursor? Right here. These are little baby tiny grapevines, only about 2 years old, coming up the stake. And once those start budding out, the leaves, well, they would eat those. So that's not good either. So the window's really small. So 2 or 3 weeks.
That's amazing. When did you start doing that?
About 3 years ago.
Cool. I love it.
They're called the woolly weeders. It's a guy who runs sheep. Yeah. We pay him, and then he fattens up the sheep, and then he goes and sells them and gets money for the guy's got a good thing going for sure. Oh, there I go. Okay. So there we go. So what are we doing? We're tasting wine. Where are we?
We're tasting
Sarah,
wine.
the boss.
I'm the boss. So do you want to talk quickly? Because I think most people have probably already tasted the Red Shoulder Ranch Chard.
Sure.
So do you want to talk about the history of that wine for you guys?
Yeah, so you guys have had that. It's the 2018 Red Shoulder Ranch Chardonnay. It's a vineyard in Carneros. We've had it since 1988, all small clustered clones. It's all Chardonnay, so it's a vineyard designated wine. We call it the Red Shoulder Ranch in honor of the red shoulder hawks, which eat the gophers, the moles, and the cover crop. Cover crop's a great thing for lots of good reasons, but the bad thing is you get lots of gophers and moles. And the old days used to poison them. That's not very sustainable. We had a gopher blaster for a while, which was basically a tank of propane and an igniter switch, and it would blow up the gophers in their gophers holes, but that was kind of dangerous. 8-year-old boys' birthday parties was great. They loved to see Mr. Shafer blow stuff up, but we had to get rid of that. And so I saw an article about raptors. So we put up hawk perches for red-tailed hawks, red-shoulder hawks to hunt during the day. And we also have barn owl boxes. And we have boxes that barn owls have a little family. And those guys, they only go out at night. So we've got 24-hour rodent control, hawks during the day, owls at night. So that's the name, that's the source of the name. The wine is barrel fermented, 3/4 oak barrels, French oak barrels, 1/4 stainless steel barrels, aged on the lees. At the risk of being kind of geeky, no malolactic. Mallow fattens up the mouth, but it drops the acid and it drops the fruit, and I want to keep that up. So no malolactic, and age it for 10 or 11 months and bottle it up. That's it. That's the recipe.
How long have you been making it?
Chardonnay we've been making since 1980. The Red Shoulder Ranch the first vintage was 1994, because we bought that vineyard in 88 and developed it and started getting good crops in 94. So
that's the only white wine from you guys that we get in distribution. Is it the only white wine you make?
Only white wine we make. That's it. Everything else is red.
Awesome.
Speaking of red, It's 4:25. It's time for red wine.
Move right along. I'm sure we'll have questions about the Chardonnay, but yeah, let's move on to reds.
No, if you have questions on Chard, go for it. Let me have it.
No, I don't. Jeremy hasn't sent me the questions yet, but
Okay.
I think just before we move on to reds, my only Chard question was, have you always made Chard in the same way, or has it kind of progressed? Because I know that Chardonnay trends tend to change pretty quickly.
Yeah, we've always avoided malolactic because I really like fruit and acid, and like I said, malo drops that off. So we've always avoided malolactic. The big change is probably fruit source. You know, from 1980 to the early 90s, for 10 or 12 years, a lot of my fruit came from actually kind of up valley, meaning the Stag's Leap area, Yountville, Oak Knoll, which is just south of Stag's Leap. Fairly cool, but warm, definitely warmer than Carneros. So I started buying fruit in Carneros from a guy named Larry Hyde in the mid 80s, and it was just like really, really amazing fruit, so good. And I realized that, and this was the evolution of Napa Valley, plant the right grape in the right place. Dad, when he planted this vineyard right here in Stag's Leap, he had 8 acres of Chardonnay because he was going to have a winery. He wanted to have a white wine. That's all the land we had. So as time evolved, he realized Chardonnay does a lot better in a cooler region, which is Carneros, south of Napa. So that's when we bought the Red Shoulder Ranch and said that's where we got to plant Chardonnay. And so those grapes and wine came on in 1994, which really popped the quality in a big way. It was 100% French oak for a long time, over 10 years. And then we backed off on the oak about 6-7 years ago and went to only 3/4 French oak barrels and 1/4 stainless steel barrels to back off on the oak and keep it a little fresher, fruitier, and not have too much oak.
Yeah, I think for the Shafer's, the Red Shoulder Ranch Chard that I've had, it's interesting because it definitely has the California richness. It has body, it has weight, but it always has a liveliness to it. It's not syrupy, it's not cloying. It always has a vibrancy that I think sometimes you lose in the big oaky kind of buttery styles of Chardonnay. I think you guys balance that really, really well.
Well, thanks. Yeah, we've been working on it. You nailed it.
So do you want to talk us quickly through the reds? And then I know you have some things to do, so we'll let you sign off. But I just wanted, if you want to quickly talk through the 1.5 Relentless and the Hillside.
You got it. So 1.5 is the next red. This is the 2017. This is a Cabernet. It's actually 100% Cabernet. It's Stag's Leap District designated on the label, and that means 85% or more of the fruit comes from the Stag's Leap District. Like the Red Shoulder Ranch has Napa Valley, but it's got Carneros. That means at least 85% of the grapes came from Carneros. Actually 100% for that one, and for the 1.5 too. It's our mainline cab. We make a good slug of this wine. We love this wine. It's been a crowd pleaser forever. The name speaks to the family generation business. Dad started late in life. I joined it within the first 2 or 3 years. So instead of 2 generations, it's 1.5, which makes me the half, just 1.5. But that wine, it does speak to Stag's Leap. Stag's Leap cabs, people talk about rich fruit, soft tannins, kind of a velvety texture. It's always been a really solid wine for us. Next wine is the Relentless 2016. This is a blend. It's a blend. It's 90% Syrah, 10% Petite Syrah. And it's totally different from that Cabernet. Instead of that Cabernet, you get that black fruit, blackberry, little cocoa nose. It's really chocolate sometimes. With the Relentless and Syrah, you get smoked bacon, smoked meat, bacon, kind of a smokiness character to it. You get some pepper, black pepper, sometimes a little blueberry. The Relentless is named in honor of Elias, our winemaker and my best buddy. And he's known as a junkyard dog around here. So to honor Elias and his relentless pursuit of quality, we call the wine Relentless. So it's in his honor.
Doug, I feel like when we talk about Napa and specifically Stag's Leap, it's usually Syrah, especially Petite Syrah. It's not what people think of. What was the inspiration behind it?
Thank you. Thanks, Sarah. You keep me on point. This came back, we started making this, God, when did we start making this? 1999, I think. We had a hillside vineyard just south of Stag's Leap District, was not in the district, and we were about to plant it. We were going to plant Merlot and Cab and probably just use those in our other wines. And Elias and I, we were on a tear. We were, every time we'd go out to lunch or dinner, we'd have a bottle of Syrah. It's just like, I want to make this. Yeah, me too. Let's make it. Let's make it. We got these 15 acres we're going to plant. So we rolled it out to my dad and we said, we want to plant this vineyard. We want to plant a blend, and the blend's going to be 80 or 90% Syrah and 10 or 20% Petite Syrah. And we're going to plant the vineyard in that blend. And I'll never forget it. We're sitting in his office and we pitched this to him because this is in the mid 90s. And he leans back and he goes, huh, sounds like a new product. And we go, yeah, it's great, man. It's Syrah. We love Syrah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He goes, well, a new product, fellas, you know, with my corporate background in publishing, you know, if you have a new product, you usually want to test the market. I go, yeah. He goes, which means, you know, you make a couple hundred cases and see if people like it or not. And Elias and I both kind of went, huh. And then he looked out the window, he looked back at us and he said, you know, but you guys have been doing pretty good lately, so go ahead and go for it. We're like, yeah, right on. So we planted this vineyard. It was 15 acres, actually it was 18 acres, and we planted the blend, like an 80-20 blend of Syrah and Petite Syrah, and that was the beginning of it. So we just went for it.
So, do you remember the wines you were drinking that inspired, like were you drinking Chateauneuf? Were you drinking Southern France? Were you drinking California?
God, no, I don't remember it. It's usually after a long day of harvest or bottling, and we have a cold beer and then, or maybe a martini, and then we get a good bottle of red wine. It's just like, you know, just bring that one. You know, you know, if you guys, well, I don't know, maybe some winemakers are very, you know, methodical and, you know, no, we just go for it. We just go for it.
That's awesome.
You know, basically, what tastes good. That's it.
Was that, so knowing that most of it was Cab at the time, was that the first Syrah that went in Stag's Leap, or is it the only
Actually, it was not in Stag's Leap. It's on a hill. It's just outside of the area. So, but if it had been Stag's Leap, we would have done it too. You know, who cares? You know, we're just looking for good grapes.
That's awesome.
And so, speaking of good grapes, Hillside Select. So this is the home brew. So we grow this here on the hillsides, right around the winery. 100% Cabernet. Been making it. It's been designated Hillside Select since 1983. However, as I mentioned earlier, his first wine, the 78 Cab, was the same grapes, the Hillside. So it's a very special wine to all of us at Shafer. It speaks to this place. It's the only wine that we make, in my opinion, that speaks to place. The whole idea of terroir, and we love it. It's you know, we've made it every year, and we make it every year because it's even in good years, bad years, rainy years, hot years, cold years. It's a beautiful, beautiful wine. And I can actually now that I've been doing this so many years, I can line up over 30 of them in a row and say, what do you think? And it's pretty cool. So
awesome.
That's the truly. I mean. I love the wine business. I love growing grapes. I love making wine, but boy, having a wine like this and the legacy, the length, the heritage, the history is just really special. So I hope you enjoy it.
I feel like with the Hillside, it's one of the most, by far, like top 5 most iconic wines, not just coming out of California, but coming out of the US. And I think when people look globally at the US as a production market, the Shafer wines, specifically the Hillside, are wines that it's a wine that people talk about. Wow. For always being consistent, always being, you know, this just epitome of what everyone else is trying to do. It's truly a
benchmark. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right.
And
how Got questions? What do you got?
These questions. I know Chris and Andrea are here. Andrea,
Chris
do you
and
want
Andrea, were you guys out here one time? Where are they? Turn on your volumes.
Jeremy's
Here we are. We were here in 2007, and we just had such a wonderful experience, and your wines are amazing. We have a bunch at home, so this has been a real treat to be able to reconnect with you again.
Oh, it's
Let me
great.
ask you, we have,
It's
Hillside, I'm
I'm
sorry,
glad-
we have Hillside Select from 2002 through 2007. Which
Wow.
one should we be drinking now?
02 and 07, go 02. 02 right now.
No, we got 02, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Oh, they have the vertical.
We got the
02.
vertical through there.
I think I would just start oldest to youngest and spread them out.
Fantastic. We're gonna have a party.
Yeah.
Chris,
Good.
invite me.
Definitely.
Do you guys have any questions for Doug? Because I know Doug's going to jump off here in just a second. I'm going to stay on, but if you guys have any more questions for Doug, now's your chance. Man.
No.
All right, Doug, well, we're going to let you go. I
Okay.
really appreciate you talking us through the history of the winery and taking the time to chat with us and all of the Southworth team and clubs. Maybe if you ever find yourself out here, we'd love to do an event or a dinner or something. So.
Hey, I got online. I checked out the Creighton Farms golf course. So how about it? I'm in.
It's beautiful.
Okay. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you for the opportunity to talk about Shafer and our wines. And stay safe, drink well, and we'll see you on the other side. Take care.
Thanks, Doug. You guys, I'm going to stay on. You guys have a couple minutes.
See the window. Oh.
All right. You guys still there? I know some of you are going to pop off, but I just wanted to let you know, specifically if you're watching from Creighton in Virginia, the club has access to all of these wines. So they are doing some deal pricing around the tasting tonight. So we would love to see you guys support this so that we can continue doing kind of more events like this. So if there's something that you're interested in getting more of, or, you know, just kind of doing a deep dive on or stocking your cellar, now is definitely the time. We're going to do some promo pricing for like the next 2 weeks. So do not hesitate to stock your cellars. You can reach out to TJ if you're in Virginia, or your club manager, depending on which club you're tuning in from. Jeremy, is there anything you want to add before we kind of wrap up here?
Apologize for getting an echo here, but no, nothing I want to add right now. You know, please do reach out to your club manager. We've spoken with them about Shafer wines, and they have them available. They can get them for you. And in addition to that, we have more of this coming up over the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned, and we'll have lots more of this coming for you.
I'll tack on to that. As you guys are reaching out to your clubs, if there are wineries or, you know, proprietors that you want to have the opportunity to talk to, or wines that the opportunity to taste with them, we are really trying to line up some of the best for the Southworth clubs. So please don't be shy in saying who you want to chat with, or who you want to see, or who you want to dive. We're trying to stay connected and in front of you guys through all of this. So yeah, let us know how we can further help and serve you as you're drinking at home. Jeremy, I think that's all. I do just want to say thanks again, and we really appreciate everyone who tuned in, and hopefully we'll see you all again very soon.
Thank you so much, Susanna. We appreciate it.
Really good to hear from you guys. Thanks for tuning in.